Admitting them now. Hello to everyone who just entered. We're going to wait just a few minutes and let people kind of log on. I think it's very late in some parts of the world where people are joining, so we want to give them a second to maybe wake up a little bit. But if you have any questions that you are going to want us to address, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box, and we will do our best to get to them.
Thanks, Elena. Hi, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. So let's just wait for a minute and let everybody settle in. So very happy to start this session, and good morning and good evening based on where you are coming from. So maybe you can just drop in your name and just let us know where you're coming from and where you're joining from. And let's just wait for a minute for everybody to just settle in. So, all right, let's just wait for a minute. And yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, our chat box is open. So feel free to, put them over here.
New York.
Okay, just like 30 seconds more. Let's wait people to come in. Hey, Nishma. Hey, Andy. Hey, Paridhi. Hey, Matt. How are you all doing?
How's it going, Paul? I'm a fan of Amsterdam.
Paul's in Jersey City. All right.
Oh, Paul's in Jersey. Priorities from Amsterdam.
I'll say you guys are neighbors practically.
Ah, Jersey, Jersey.
All right, so let me just quickly introduce myself. So hi, everyone. I'm Shalki, and I am an entrepreneur in residence at MBA and Beyond. We'll be starting the session today, and I'll be your host. So we'll just wait for 30 seconds when people can join. And meanwhile, I'll just talk about what agenda we have for today. So we will be discussing top MBA programs and what's the cost versus ROI for the top ranked colleges. We'll also be helping you understand how to shortlist best fit schools. We'll help you understand how you can build a very strong profile for the admissions. And we'll talk about the impact of recent or upcoming career role transitions that a lot of people go through, right? And finally, we'll help you understand 3 steps to crafting an excellent applications in the next 2 to 3 months. So very excited to have this session. Let me introduce our speakers for today. Our first speaker is Elena. Hi, Elena. Elena is a dynamic, hi. Elena is a dynamic leader and consultant with an extensive and successful background in strategic consulting and college and career advising. Her degrees are in management and higher education, and she is a certified educational planner. Additionally, she serves as facilitator for the Houston area Berkman International Consultants Group. And when evaluating MBA application profiles, she knows greatest value is found beyond the surface level. Elena knows where to deep dive in order to create a cohesive storyline, which showcases an applicant's strengths and also helps them understand the areas where they could most benefit from an additional support. Welcome, Elena, and very happy to have you here for the session tonight.
Very happy to be here.
Great, lovely. All right, so our next speaker for today is Andrew. Andrew White has been in the last 15 years spent so much of his time working in various roles within the education sector. His work has taken him across the globe. He has a BA in International Studies from Morehouse College, an MS in International Communication from St. John's University, and an MS in Advanced Education Studies from the University of Glasgow. Andrew has worked extensively in enrollment management at the undergraduate and graduate levels. He has served on various education-related boards and is a trustee at the Q Forest School in Queens, New York. He works full-time at New York Automotive and Diesel Institute, the College of Automotive Technology, in the role of Dean of Admissions. Hi, Andrew. Welcome to the session
Hello.
tonight.
Hi, hi.
Great to have you here.
Thank
All
you. Happy
right,
to be here.
great. All right, I think we have a lot of people coming in. So let's just get started with what our session is going to be about. So Elena, maybe you can, help us start with the cost versus ROI. Over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shalki. So I think this is a very important question, but one that is often overlooked, which is an MBA worth it? And I know, everyone on here is obviously here because they're excited to pursue, well, hopefully they're excited, maybe a little nervous or stressed out, but excited to pursue an MBA. But I also know, like here in the US, for example, it just came out that we're, going through a 9% inflation. So, things are more expensive, or essentially everybody just kind of took a pay cut, if that makes sense. Unless you got a 10% raise at the same time. So I know a lot of people go for an MBA, for various reasons, whether it's to, build your network or to, professional development reasons, et cetera. But it's usually a very pricey investment. It takes up a lot of time and energy. You are often missing out on work and income from, that time period. And so as you're going into this process, it's really important to think through some questions, regarding cost versus ROI. And so the first thing I have is, why is this important? Well, it's a big investment and you're going to need a lot of commitment to the process. And if you're not invested in the process, if you're not clear on why you're pursuing it, you're a lot more likely to put it to the side and prioritize other things. And that's going to affect, therefore, your quality. And then what you should be considering is everything from inflation to career pathways, goals, your personal goals, the time you have available. It's not always going to be the most ideal time, but again, that's where your priorities come into play. And again, whether it's professional or personal goals, you need to look at how that aligns with the time and investment of an MBA. And then how does it help your application to consider these things? When you are clear on your goals and you are committed to the process and you know why you are committed to it, it's going to appear in your application. It is going to be apparent. If you are not committed to it, or you're unclear why you are pursuing an MBA, or you're doubting whether it's worth it or not, that is also going to be apparent. Admissions officers read hundreds, if not thousands, of applications. They know what to look for. They know to look for inconsistencies. They know to look for certain things that say whether or not you're going to be a candidate that sticks with it, or whether or not you're a candidate that's invested in the process. So considering all these things and taking them into account is what can really help build a strong application. Andrew, do you have anything you want to add on to that?
No, I appreciated your language on commitment to the process, without a doubt. And the other thing is, and I'll probably get into this a little bit later, is knowing yourself and understanding the why you're doing it. It's very important to be able to understand for yourself, at least at the beginning, that this is something that you are wanting to do, and that will, that understanding of your own intentions versus those of others that are pushing you versus your own inner spirit pulling you towards something. It makes the difference between really, really staying the course and getting sidetracked or feeling like you're unclear, as you mentioned, on your direction.
Yeah. And just for everybody listening, a quick context is Andrew and I actually have different roles at MBA and Beyond, and it really helps us give a very kind of comprehensive view on how we approach applications. I do profile evaluations and kind of look at things almost from an admissions perspective. It's a very overarching view where I am able to take in a lot of information at once and say, what are the strengths? What are the areas needed for improvement in this profile? And then be able to give somebody that feedback. Whereas Andrew is one of our consultants, and he is the one who actually helps build strategy, dive in deep, really build that brand and that storyline, and then, strategize the process. So we tend to look at things from both sides of the desk in a sense. And so that's why you might hear us talk about different parts of the process, or, how we might look at different things. So thank you.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely. My pleasure.
Shalky, if we want to go to the next slide.
Okay, so it's my turn now, and we're going to talk about shortlisting best fit schools and how to narrow it down. And the thing is, and this is where I really like my role, because you get to be creative, you get to, I like to say, play a little jazz, but you also get to really, really do a deep dive into yourself and what you're looking for. And the best part about it is that we have this handy dandy new invention called Google. Maybe you've heard of it. And you can kind of do your own mapping and connecting of the dots. So you might have an interest in international relations, which I do. I come from an international relations background, as you saw. And you might have another interest that pairs that with economics or finance or the global community or Middle East particular business functions as it pertains to oil and all of that, with that kind of transactional relationship between countries and how to make business out of that. So what I mean to say is, when you're thinking about yourself and you're thinking about your MBA direction, you understand that there's an MBA, and then within the MBA, there's an MBA concentration. So you can have an MBA in all kinds of different things, right? You're probably going to take a lot of the same what are called core courses, right? So your introduction to business, your introduction to finance, your introduction to quantitative analysis, your introduction to marketing, your introduction to research, all of those things. And at some point, they're going to say, okay, what do you want to concentrate on? And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about fit, right? So when I define the word fit, I think about who you are, what you want to do, why, and what you want to do next, right? And so finding those things and creating those parameters is really, really important. I once had a young lady decide that she wanted to leave school for one reason. And I know it sounds silly, but this woman was from the Bahamas. And she said, look, I love the school, I love the people, but it's too cold. So she didn't really understand that in February, it gets to be negative 20 some odd degrees. And so she just couldn't swing it. So when I talk about fit, there's a lot of different things you can think about, but who you are, what you want to do, why you want to do it, and what you want to do next. And then you get to start looking at the schools themselves. You got to start looking at the MBA, you get to start looking at the majors. And that's where you really get to define the direction that you're going to go, so that you can choose schools in regions that you want to go to, with not only MBA programs, but MBA programs with concentrations that relate to what it is you're trying to pursue. Okay. And then the other part of that is doing your research not only on the program, but the objectives of the school, right? And the best way, especially at the graduate level, is to Google the faculty, to look into what the faculty people are doing and see if there's an alignment in your interest and some of their research. Public papers, that's always, public knowledge. You can always find papers and research and conferences that people have presented at, so you can make sure that what you're thinking about doing is reasonable, and it doesn't have to be spot on. You don't have to be 100% on target, but at least you want to see if there's something similar in your directional objectives. And that's what we're going to talk about later on, when it talks about reaching out to the schools and communicating and presenting yourself in the best way and in the most appropriate way. Those kinds of conversations in my book are quite reasonable, because you want to make sure that the people you're going to be studying under know who you are and understand that your goals are aligned, and also that you're willing to do your research and you're not going in blind. And of course, the academic fit is important because you're thinking about price, you're thinking about all these other things, but you want to make sure that what the school is looking for is also what you can bring to them. You don't have to check every box, but you want to make sure that you're a comer, you're in the running. And that's very important, so that you know how to strategically target where you're looking at. Did you have anything else?
Well, first, I want to say I think that was extremely thorough, Andrew. So I think that was great. Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, everybody who's listening to Andrew, he's giving excellent information. He is also probably, maybe again, stressing you out a little bit, because there is so much to take into account when you are shortlisting schools, and all of it matters. Every single thing that Andrew said is a relevant, appropriate thing to do when you are shortlisting schools. And so if it feels a little overwhelming to think about doing all of that, because again, me and him are both from the US. right? And there's a reason we have successful backgrounds in like college consulting is because there's like 4,000 universities in the US. You know, there's thousands of schools. And, you know, even if you're looking at schools in Europe, Asia, you know, there are so many, and it can be hard. There is Google, there is research, but it can be hard to, you know, you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes
True.
you don't look for things. Sometimes you're overwhelmed by the amount of information that's out there, or not knowing what's relevant information, what's outdated. So that is a reason where a lot of people do kind of seek out the help of a consultant like us, is to help them approach that strategically so they don't get consumed by the research. But it is absolutely important, regardless of whether you work with a consultant or not, to really, like Andrew said, be clear about what you want from a school, and be clear about what you're going to give a school in terms of, you know, your input.
Thank you, Elena. Absolutely. And
All
if I could add one more little piece to that, is to, you know, and this is kind of getting ahead, but to understand the concept of starting small and taking each piece by piece and not trying to do it all at the same time, because to your point, that's how you get overwhelmed.
Yeah, start small. It's always good and specific. All right, if we want to go to the next one, Andrew, I'm going to bring this back to you because this is your area of expertise. So
all right. So I think I kind of touched on this a little bit before, measuring your credentials. What does building a strong profile entail? And I have 3 points here: profile evaluation, being honest but strategic, and showcasing your unique self. And the last one is key, and I'll get to it last, but it's really, really important. Profile evaluation, I think that kind of speaks for itself. Understanding what the requirements are for the program you are pursuing. And that really means, as you know, I hate to say it this way, but doing your research, knowing what they're looking for, knowing what they require. That information is public knowledge. You can find out what average GPAs are right on admissions websites. You can find out what average GRE and GMAT scores are right on school websites. You can find out what TOEFL and IELTS and Duolingo scores are on the websites if you need to take an English as a second language examination. Anything you really need to find out what the school is looking for in a range or bare minimum or a maximum, you should be able to find on the website. And then you want to be able to craft or seek support by, you know, a consultant, crafting your own profile to meet that standard. And that's where the second point comes in, is about being honest, but being strategic, right? You can't lie to anybody. You can't say that you have a 4.0 GPA if you don't have a 4.0 GPA, because they're going to find you out, and they're going to find you out quickly. But you have to be strategic, and you have to be able to speak to what is being asked of you. For example, if you have experience managing money, even if it's working a cash register at McDonald's, you can speak to the fact that you have experience managing money, because you do. You know, doing the books, averaging a till, understanding what you brought in versus what you put out in expenses. All of those things are on the level, but you just need to know how to seek support, wording it well and strategically, and being smart. But again, you don't want to lie in your outreach, and you want to make sure that you are sincere but strategic, because even if you're applying for a job, you want to look at the requirements of the job, and you want to make your profile in the most sincere and legitimate way match what they're looking for, so you have a shot in this whole big wide world of other people that are competing. And I do mean in this big wide world. There was a time when you were just competing against people in your country or in your city or in your town. That day is done. If you live in New York, you're competing with people from China, Russia, Africa, Geneva, Israel, Afghanistan, India. It doesn't really matter. You're competing with people from all over the world. And I think that's cool, but you have to come correct. You have to come correct. And then the final thing is showcasing your unique self, right? So being honest and being strategic, and then speaking to what value you present, what makes you special, right? And it can't just be, you know, my mommy always looked at me and told me I was special. No, why are you special? Do you speak a language? Do you speak 2 languages? Have you had an internship? Have you worked at a Fortune 500 company? Have you managed a company? Do you understand how to work on books? Have you done something creative? Have you built something? Even if it failed, using that as an example of that tenacity and ability to see the bigger picture. You're going to business school so you can complete to fill in the blanks in that bigger picture. So all of these things are important. So that's talking about your essay. Now, LORs, letters of recommendation. I always say there are two important things about a letter of recommendation. Number one is make sure that the person you are asking to recommend you knows you. The next thing that you want to make sure is that the person recommending you likes you. I know it may sound silly, but I have personally, I've read letters of recommendation where the recommender knew the person, but something happened and that recommender did not like that person because maybe they were dishonest, maybe they took credit for work that wasn't theirs, or maybe they didn't give enough kudos to their professor when they supported them for a project. Whatever the case may be, they went to somebody, they got a recommendation letter. That letter of recommendation came to my office. I read it and it said, this person has a 3.9 GPA, but they're not a good person. So again, make sure the person knows you and make sure they like you. Some schools still have interview requirements. Some don't. If you have an interview requirement or segment as part of your application, be yourself, be honest, come correct, do your research, have talking points. If you can, know who's on the panel of people who are going to interview you so you can Google them first and have something that you can talk about smartly and in a cogent way in the conversation if it makes sense. These are all kinds of different ways to be strategically smart, but honest in your approach to building a profile and being successful.
So again, Andrew, I think all that is extremely relevant and insightful. And I just want to add on a little bit to that, just from my own experience, which is my background is more in undergraduate consulting. So working with younger students who are trying to get into, Harvard and all that, but for their bachelor's. So kind of similar process, but as they're building profiles, as they're trying to work on their essays or their brand, often what I see is that they are, they're doing research, but they are also really, maybe they're doing a little bit too much research, meaning they're reading other people's voices, they're reading other people's letters of recommendations and essays and looking at examples, and they're letting that impact their own voice. So it can be, and again, this is kind of where it really helps working with someone else, whether, again, it's a consultant or your spouse or a colleague, a friend, just somebody to be another set of eyes, ears, to help you think through strategically about who you are and how you want to represent yourself. When you try to do it on your own, you are taking in so much often from, again, your own research or your own biases, and you're letting that impact your voice, or you're getting stuck on how to present yourself well or authentically. And it can be very challenging, but I just want to kind of offer that the cautionary tale of, because I have heard of MBA candidates when doing the profile evaluations, they tell me they got dinged like in the last round or something, or last year. And they, said, oh, well, I did all my research on my own. And I read probably 20 different essays and went through, and in my head, I knew, like, well, if you read through all those, chances are you were trying to imitate the best ones, not copy or anything, but you were letting it impact your own voice. And when you try to take 20 different voices or take the best of 20 different things, it's really hard to Frankenstein that together into something that is authentic. So just wanted to emphasize the importance of, again, seeking second, third, and fourth opinions from people that actually know you, preferably like you, and allowing that to build the consistent profile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So for our next slide, for career role transitions, again, this kind of goes back to the profile building because it would be a part of it. I've had several candidates recently kind of have this issue. And again, especially here in the US, where there has been inflation, there's been the great resignation. A lot of people are wanting to pursue different career pathways, look for different opportunities, whether because they want more leadership abilities, flexibility, increase in pay, et cetera. But they're wondering, how does that impact my upcoming MBA applications? Is that a bad thing? Is it a neutral thing? Is it a good thing? So I wanted to address that. First of all, the different questions I would ask is the first one, is this a flexible opportunity? Because whatever the reason for transitioning a role or a totally different career, like different industry, whatever the reason, it's a stressful transition. Often it can still be a positive one, but it is often stressful and time consuming. You are learning new responsibilities. You often are needing to put in more time to get adjusted. It can take away focus from MBA applications. So it is something to at least consider of, is this opportunity going to be one that is available in 3 or 4 months? Or even 6 months? Is this something that needs to happen right this second? And that is going to be very varied between the opportunities, but it's still something worth considering. For the next one, I would say, does it help your candidacy for MBA applications? So if you've been lacking maybe in some leadership skills or leadership opportunities, or perhaps you have not had a chance to dive into the industry you actually want to study, and now you have the opportunity, it could be a great alignment with your MBA goals. However, if you have switched between roles or jobs, not roles necessarily, but if you switch between careers, companies, several times in the last 2 years, that can show, or it can present as being, inconsistent or non-committal. And so again, you just kind of want to consider how it is going to impact your candidacy. And regardless of the reason, again, you want to present it strategically, because even if it is a great opportunity, you still want to be able to voice why that is a great opportunity, why that transition is happening now, how it's going to, again, align or help your MBA process. If it is like a not so great reason for moving, maybe you don't get along with the people at your work, or there's not growth opportunities. I hear that a lot. It's often why people are pursuing an MBA. They lack growth opportunities in their own companies, probably because of restructuring, or again, just the great resignation and everybody scrambling to make things work. But you want to present it well. You don't want to play the blame game. You don't want to look like, again, you're someone who doesn't stick through with things. So it is all about presenting it strategically and carefully. And ideally, you are, again, getting some feedback from someone, whether that is a consultant or a colleague or someone, of, hey, can you read this? Can you go through this? Does this sound like I am taking responsibility and ownership over this move and presenting it in a way that highlights, again, my strengths or my goals? So that is my take on career and role transitions. Andrew, is there anything you wanted to add on that, or?
No, I think that made a lot of sense. And yeah, you certainly don't want to voice negatives in your language and your approach. And also, I think in a similar vein, it's not really ever good to let the negative guide your decision making. It has to be because it's something positive that you want to enhance yourself and move forward, as opposed to avoiding something that's holding you back or not pushing you forward. It's nuanced, but positive thinking is always the reason and the approach that I prefer to take.
I would definitely agree with that. And that brings us, I think, to our last agenda slide, which, again, Andrew, I'm going to give it to you, because back to your area of expertise.
All right. And again, we can, if you want to bounce off, you're totally welcome. Working backwards, it's a concept that is near and dear to my heart. Understanding what you're looking to do understanding your timetable. Time management, in my view, is one of the most important things in any situation, let alone an application to a professional degree program. So keeping a calendar, setting alarms, following up, dedicating time is critical. You know, if you have a window of time that you have to yourself and you feel like that's a good window, it doesn't really matter what time it is. I would say you can carve that time out and let the people around you know, this is time that I need to do this to take myself to the next level, and make sure that they understand that. And it's important, especially if there are people in your life, loved ones, family members, whoever, wife, mom, dad, that they understand what's going on with you. So it's not there, but communicating with the people around you about your plans and your objectives is really, really important. Being authentic, again, is so important. Being yourself, being genuine, being the best version of yourself is important. And not trying to be schizophrenic, if you will, in your reading and your research, and trying to take everybody's voice and put it out there, because you get blah, and that doesn't really work. You want to be authentic. You want to find your voice. And the other thing, and this comes from me as a writer, and I write a lot of papers. Sometimes the best thing to do when you're stuck or when you're moving and you can't figure out what your voice is to step away from it and think about something else and process it. And maybe you'll have that aha moment and you'll be able to move forward quite successfully. The other piece of that is not being afraid to delete a paragraph or delete a whole sentence, because it's important that if you are flowing and if you're writing and if you're coming up with your voice and being your authentic self, sometimes what you thought you were going to say and what you thought was perfect 6 weeks ago no longer fits within the framework of what is now a potentially very well crafted presentation of yourself. And that's very important. And then following the rules and respecting the process. And what that means is, if there are application requirements and they say we want your high school diploma and we want your bachelor's degree, that's all they want in terms of your credentials. They don't want every certificate you got when you were in junior high about the robotics competition or whatever the case may be. They just want what they want, because as my colleague said, they don't really have a lot of time to review all the other stuff. As great as it is and as wonderful as you are, it's an indication that you're not quite hearing or seeing what the rules are, or you don't have a willingness to follow them. Now, asking questions is fair game. I said it before, reaching out to professors to say, hi, my name is John. I'm very curious about what it is you're researching, what your thoughts are in the next 3 to 5 years are with this particular aspect of your work and how that's going to fit into your program, because I'm trying to make a decision about what I'm going to do next. I think that's fair game, but expecting, special treatment because you wrote that email is not part of the course, and you shouldn't expect it. And that comes into respecting the process, following the timeline, letting people get back to you is very important. And then I think one of the things that, goes kind of hand in hand with this is using what they are giving to you in terms of events, be they online or in person, if possible, to make yourself visible, make yourself known to them, but within the guidelines and the parameters in which they're presenting that opportunity to you, and not really going outside of that lane too often.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add on, and you basically already covered it though, is just a lot of people do ask about reaching out. And so I just want to emphasize, like, it is okay to reach out to admissions, to reach out to fellow students. Don't be a stalker, but, like Andrew said, wait for them to reply back. Don't be too forceful in your communications, but it absolutely is okay to reach out with questions that are not easily answered on Google or the website. So don't email them with questions that you can easily find online the answers to, because that just shows you're not doing your work. But if you do want to reach out and say, do you have students that are willing to talk to potential candidates to help them know about the culture of the school, et cetera? That's great. anything that, again, gets your name in front of them, like a seminar like this one, if they were hosting some sort of, a lot of them do, you know, Cornell, I know they do a lot. They'll host something along the lines of MBA admissions presentations, et cetera, every once in a while. Doing something like that, again, it just gets your name in front of them, and it can be helpful towards your application, because again, they are a business. They want to know that you are going to be invested in them, that you are interested in them, and in that way, it almost is like a matchmaking process. So this is kind of, you know, your dating profile for these colleges. They want to know what is special about them. They want you to write the love letter to them eventually that is specifically about their amazing traits. So
That's right.
It's a great way of getting that information. But again, you want to do it in a very strategic way, in a very respectful way, so that you can eventually write that unique, you know, love letter essentially to them saying, yes, if you accept me, I would love to come to your school, and here's why. Here's why I'll be a good fit. Mm-hmm. All right. So, which I think talking about all these steps and everything kind of brings us naturally to the part where we get to tell you a little bit about how we actively help people do this kind of on a day-to-day. So Shalky, if you want to go ahead and take over from here, and then we can get to the questions in a short while.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Andrew. This was so helpful. So
You're
I'll just
welcome.
quickly move on to the process. Right. So, you know, to help you understand how our process is, I'll just quickly go through what we do and what our USP are. And meanwhile, you know, if you have any questions, a lot of things have been covered by Elena and Andrew both. So if you have any questions, please, you know, put them on the chat box. Right after this process, I'll take each of the questions one-on-one. All right. So to start with our process, you know, we try to understand your profile in a good 30 to 45-minute session, and we try to understand your personality, your background. So please get on a profile evaluation session with us, and we'll help you understand what your profile is. Ilana can do that, and you know, we can have more profile experts like me who can be evaluating your profile. And typically, it starts in 3 different steps. And the first step is all about content gathering. This is where we try to know everything about you in detail. And that is when this is a pre-work we do with all of our applicants. And the step 1 is where we try to understand who you are, what you represent, you know, what your preferences are, what your goals are, your strengths, your weaknesses, everything from your own perspective. And within this, you'll be talking about your aspirations, your preferences, the schools you want to target, and what your strengths and weaknesses are. And you'll also go through some sample essays to understand the level of ambitions and the level of, you know, the work that needs to be done to make a very good application at the end. This is the first step of the process. The second step is, like Elena also said, you need to have somebody who knows your profile and knows you better. So we request you to get 3 contacts from your life. They could be your friends, your family member, your colleague or supervisor, and they can tell, you know, people who can tell about who you are, and they can give examples about your personality. Maybe they can talk about some instances where certain aspect of your personality has really come out very, very well, right? So people who know you well will answer very targeted questions about who you are. And when you work on the profile and build your own applications, you will realize that you will have to put a lot of relevant example to support your claim. We speak to admissions every single year, and one thing that has really stood apart is that they see that applicants kind of rush up their applications. They kind of rush up their strengths or maybe rush up their weaknesses, and that just really shows that you haven't really introspected about your personality, about yourself in general. And this is not something that we want applicants to do. So in order to remove this self bias, we asked you to get 3 people from your life, and that's when we add a lot of examples and make a very strong application. So this is the second step of the process. And the third step is where the magic happens. We try to know what your preferences are and then match you with the schools, because it's not just about, you selecting and shortlisting schools. It's also about, are you a cultural fit to the school or not? Are you going to, gel with the people? How are you going to be, spending your time over there? Just like Andrew said, this is going to be very, very important. And this is why we spend the last step of the process to help you understand and improvise the list of the schools, so that now you have an idea about which schools you need to prioritize first and which ones are best fit for you. So this is all about content gathering process. The second step is where we call branding document. And this is your MBA pitch. This is the story and narrative that you need to present to the adcoms. And this is all about, your story, your theme, and how you're going to be presenting your complete profile. And this is a one-pager document that we have, and this is going to be your holy grail, right? I mean, you and your consultant are going to be working with and referring to this document time and again. And ultimately, we help you with essays and LOR, resume and interview preparation, and each of the application material that is involved in completing the application. We help you around that. We have unlimited sessions that you get with the consultant. You'll be working with a B school consultant, and they're going to be, they're very experienced people. One of the consultants is also Andrew himself. And our consultants come from a variety of backgrounds. There are people who have worked in admissions for 10 to 15 years, and there are people who have recently gone to the schools in the last 5 to 7 years and know what the process is. And these people have worked with Fortune 500 companies, and they're entrepreneurs. They're coming from oil and gas background. They're coming from consulting background. So we have a variety of consultants, but we want to know you first, and then we match you with a B school consultant. And like I said, the consultants are very experienced people. So they are also alums of the top schools that you're going to be targeting. So the USPs that are most of the applicants that feel working with us is, first, that we have a credibility. We recommend you to the right mentor only when we know your profile and know your strengths and know your background better, so that you can connect with them and understand how to work with them. The consultants also know your profile, and they can help you in the best way possible. So we offer unlimited sessions with the consultants, so that we build a long-term relationship with you. And this is very important, because we don't help you in just getting into a B school, but we help you in the whole introspection process of how you're going to be spending the next 1 to 2 years in completing your MBA. So this is about our process, and we would love to have you and understand your profile, and you can get on a complimentary profile evaluation session with us. So we'll be assessing a lot of applicants over the next few days, and we are also offering an opportunity to sign up with us and avail discounts of up to 20%. So if you're interested, if this is something that you want to see, then please get on a profile evaluation session with us. Let us understand your profile. Let us help you in your strategy, and then we can also, maybe you can also be eligible for the discount. We'll be shortlisting our candidates very soon, and Kashish will be reaching out to you with more details in an email soon after the session today. So, all right, this is about our process. If you have anything about the process that you want me to answer, please put it in the chat box below. Now I'll move on to the last step, which is answering all of your questions. Yeah, I mean, please get on a profile evaluation. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go
It's open to. No, that's it. That's it. So,
I've actually had a direct question put to me. Says, if I have less than 2 years work experience and am wanting to change industries, is it better to get a master's in management in MIM or an MBA? And so to that, so I'll go ahead and answer that. And then Andrew, if you have anything to add on that, you're welcome to.
Sure.
So I think if you're typically for the top ranked schools, whether in the US or in, Europe or Asia, anywhere, top ranked schools, they are going to expect, I would say, somewhere between 3 to 5 years. That is the average. Now, does that mean everybody going for those MBA programs has 3 to 5 years? No, some have 7, 11 years. Others have 2 or 1.5. But typically, I would say MBA programs are normally for people that have a little bit more work experience than under 2 years by the time they're going to enter the MBA. And so if you are looking to change industries and you don't have quite that experience, potentially, again, I can only speak from this from a very overarching view. I'd have to look more into your profile and everything. But I would generally probably recommend a master's, which unfortunately is not necessarily less competitive, but sometimes it can be a little less time than an MBA, especially here in the US. An MBA is going to be 3 years. A master's can be, 1 to 2 years, depending. So that can be a benefit. But yeah, so that would be my suggestion there. Andrew, would you add on? Or
no, I would echo the same thing in terms of the work experience. I would say you want to be close to what is being asked for. I will say from the other perspective, though, a lot of schools are becoming, I should say, increasingly flexible in those hardline requirements because of the sheer economics of it all. And so, but I would say you do want to plan to come into an MBA with that 2 to 3 year work experience. There's nothing wrong with an MS, not at all. But it really depends on how can you balance it out, right? So if you've been out of college for some time and you're 40 years old, yeah, you might be able to offset that work requirement, even if it's a different industry, because you've got life experience. So, you can think through different approaches and different lenses. And when you build your profile, those things can become a little bit clearer. I have a question that came up about additional advice for seeking someone to write the letter of recommendation. Now, if you haven't worked with this person for years, if they knew you very well in the past, I would say what past? I mean, were you 7? So, it's very important that when you're talking about an MBA recommender, they need to have known you in an academic context or a professional context, because it needs to be situationally appropriate. Because as much as whoever it is might love you and want you to succeed, it needs to be relevant. And so that's important. And if you would ask yourself, is this person relevant? And if there's a question mark, the answer is probably no. If you think that they're relevant, you've worked with them, they understand you from an adult perspective, a business perspective, an academic perspective, then I would say by all means, yes. But if you feel beyond a shadow of a doubt that it's appropriate, go for it. But you really want to be diligent and discerning is a better word in your selections. And as I said, they need to be contextually appropriate, and they need to have known you either in an academic, professional, or adult context.
Yeah, and he did clarify just now, football coach from college 4 years ago. And so I will just add on to that and say, while sure, a football coach could potentially speak to, leadership or team collaboration type skills, I don't think it's going to be, if that is going to have to be your reference and you have not developed a reference worthy person in your professional life since then, like that could speak to an issue. Like, why are you having to go back to your football coach from 4 years ago? Like that can occur to an admissions committee. So that's where I would say you want to take another look at your resume, your professional experiences, and get a second and third opinion on your accomplishments and your unique traits, because you are probably underselling yourself in certain areas. Many people do. And you can have someone else identify some accomplishments or traits. There's going to be a little light bulb that comes on where you go, oh, I didn't realize that was such a worthy accomplishment, or that is a very great trait about myself. And I know someone who knows me in that context that could write about that. So that's where it can be great to look back at your resume and take another look of where has that leadership shown up, because I promise it's probably shown up since football times. Now, again, are there exceptions? Is the coach like an alum or some, got a great connection? Maybe, but that would be something more for like a consultant meeting to answer, I would think. Someone said, are part-time programs seen as any less distinguished to full-time programs to employers post-graduation?
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's it. That's the answer.
Absolutely not. Because I'm going to tell you something. All they see is that you graduated from the college with the MBA. They see, Harvard University MBA. They don't see Harvard University part-time MBA. And, I thought that. The reason I think it's funny is because I thought that for a long time. And then when I realized it, I was like, oh, wait, it's still the degree, because night school. The thing is, I'll put it to you this way. When I was growing up, going to summer school was seen as like the worst possible thing you could do. And then when I went to college and graduate school, it was the thing that the smart kids were doing because they wanted to get ahead. The point is, part-time school means you're busy, you're doing other things, you're making a living for yourself because you've got bills to pay. You're a realist living in the real world, and nobody's going to hold that against you. As a matter of fact, they probably look at it as an advantage because you can multitask.
Right. And I think sorry, Elena, I'll just, quickly take up a question that Matt asked quite some time back. And he's asking, can you speak to the benefits, if any, of applying to, let's say, round 1 versus round 2? Maybe, one of you can take up this question.
So I'll answer it briefly because Andrew might have a lot more to say on this, but so benefits round 1 versus round 2. Round 1 is where you typically are going to want to apply if you're part of an overrepresented group, because essentially they're trying to fill seats, if that makes any sense. So they have a number of seats that they need to fill for an incoming year or an incoming class. They're going to have they're going to be looking for people who are just a good fit for the school. Academically, we already talked about this. How do you look for a best fit? They're going to look for that. So they're not necessarily looking extremely hard at, do we have this demographic represented? Do we have people looking at this industry represented, et cetera? That more comes up in later rounds. So again, it's a strategic thing, but if you are part of an underrepresented group, you may actually have some benefit in applying to round 2 or 3. If you are retaking even like a GMAT or something and really thinking you're going to get a great score as opposed to the one you already have, it could be another reason to wait. But yeah, that would be my very basic answer there. Andrew, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I don't really have any additional comments on that. No.
And I would also say I had a direct question though of what is the max number of applications that you should submit in a round? I think that's a great question. And again, it depends on where you're at in the process. We do have a lot of people wanting to work with us because they've waited until now to start. And so it is going to be, you're going to kick it into high gear, but you want to make sure you have quality applications. Typically, I don't recommend people apply to more than say 4 or 5 schools in a round. That may even be a little bit much for a person, but it just kind of depends on the best strategy. Again, because it really is all about both quality and your potential for admittance. Someone says, what do you suggest regarding executive MBA for working 14 years of experience professional? So just, if the question's referring to like good executive MBA programs, I mean, there's a lot, they typically run along the same lines as your standard MBA, whether that's Wharton or HEC Paris, but someone with a 14 years of experience, I think at HEC Paris, the average years of experience is 13 years. So you're going to be right in line with people who have that level of experience. That is going to be what they're looking for. So if you have, again, the credentials, it seems you have one of them already, then that sets you in line with, their expectations and requirements for some top executive MBA programs.
Right.
I would say also remember.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. So I just quickly, add, if you're looking at executive MBA or maybe just full-time MBA programs, there are a lot of universities and colleges in Europe, which are, they have a curriculum designed especially for people who have higher years of experience. So IMD Switzerland, HEC Paris, INSEAD, and these are some of the top schools which you can also look into applying. Of course, they have a little FT program as well. So if this is something that you're open, maybe you can, explore that option as well. Sorry, Andrew. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I was really just going to say, it also, age and working experience go hand in hand, but also, I would say the objective of the MBA, right? So some people use an objective to go from one level in a company to another. Some people use it to get into a company altogether. So, it really depends on who you want to be around. If you want to be around people that are already managers that are looking to become CEOs or something like that, then that's where an EMBA comes into place. Whereas a traditional MBA is really that business acumen, that introduction into the field. So that's kind of also one of the things you want to consider. Where are you in your professional life cycle?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any other direct questions that were sent to me, but I want to be respectful of time because I know it's very, very late where some people are. Or very
Indeed.
early.
Right.
Shalky
All right.
was okay.
Yeah, I think we have discussed and taken up almost all the questions that I see. Kashish or maybe anybody else, if you have any other question, we can take up on the call. And meanwhile, I'll just go back to what we were saying. I think it's very important to first understand what your profile is, to have an honest opinion about where you are at your journey, whether if you need to be applying to round one schools, or maybe if you need to be applying to round two school. So it's very important to understand where you stand right now, with the scores that you have and what your profile is, because
Yeah.
working on your story and narrative is going to be very, very important. No matter what your exam scores are, your theme and narrative takes a little longer, right? You need to marinate those questions in your head, take some time around, have a feedback from one of the consultants, and just work around the whole profile, right? So the earlier you start, it's always better. So if you're still looking at applying and still considering if you should get started on your application, I think this is the right time. Get started ASAP. And I know it might be a little late for people who are joining from different parts of the world. So we can just quickly wrap up if we do not have any other questions. Whenever please have a look and join the one-on-one sessions. We will be taking and understanding your questions on the call. If you have anything that we have missed or anything that you want to address on the call, we can just get on a quick call and understand and help you how to build your profile and help you how to start working on your applications. So we'll be sharing you a quick email very soon, and we'll share you the details. If you have any questions around that, feel free to just let us know, and we'll get back to you ASAP. So all right, so very, very excited to have you all on a profile evaluation. Very excited to understand your story, understand your journey, where you're coming from. And we at MBA and Beyond will be very, very happy to have you and help you in any way possible. So all right, if you think there's anything else that we can consider, maybe that'd be great. Any other question that if you all have, just let us know. And like I said, one last and very interesting thing, this is offered to the attendees who are present over here. We will be shortlisting one of the top candidates, and we will be shortlisting 2 to 3 applicants who have a very strong profile, and you'll be getting details about the 20% discount as well. So do check for our email, do get back to us if you have any question. We'll be happy to help. So, all right. Anything else you want to add, Andrew and Elena, before we kind of conclude the session?
No, thank you guys so much. We look forward to helping you out.
Absolutely. And I'll just say, as one of the people who would be doing these profile evaluations, that's what I do. I want to challenge you, if you haven't already done a profile evaluation call. I think a couple people in this meeting have done one with me, but if you haven't, then prior to our meeting, I want to challenge you to think about your goals, because I promise that is going to make it a much more productive conversation. And it's really going to help me provide you with feedback on, again, strengths and areas needed for improvement, and help you maybe start to build that strategy and decide how you're going to approach this process. Because again, being clear about who you are and your goals, and it's okay if you are a little cluttered and can't really figure it out. Just do your best, and I'd love to hear it. But that way I don't catch you off guard on the profile evaluations when I ask you that question. You can think about it ahead of time.
Right. All right. So thank you everyone for joining the session. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Andrew, so much for
Pleasure.
taking up the session today. And thank you everyone. Have a good day or good night wherever you are coming from. All right.
Bye.
Bye everyone.